At a quick glance, Kitaria Fables seems like Rune Factory with a sprinkle of Animal Crossing. You have a mix of farming sim and action RPG gameplay, along with cute animal-like characters. However, after putting in several hours into Kitaria Fables, I'm here to tell you that this game is not really what it seems. I wouldn't normally be this blunt, but if you've had your eye on this game and have been thinking of buying it, I really encourage you to watch this entire video. I think you'll learn some things that might surprise you. Now the story here is pretty typical and par for the course for a game like this. You're a knight tasked with protecting Pqube village from an incoming calamity. And once you get to the town, meet some of the residents, you find out that your family had a farm here. Once you're shown to your farm, you get a chance to kind of check it out, look at the different things that you have access to. You kind of have like training area, place where you can farm crops, and much more. From there, the game is mainly about improving the town, the area around it, and helping its residents. And it's easy to do that because there are so many cute and charming characters. There are different animals and they all have these different tasks that they want you to do so you can kind of get to know the town and the area around you. Now what makes this really great is that each of the characters have these super charming character portraits. It was really fun to get to know these different characters and see the different expressions they would have. Now the story itself isn't super compelling. It didn't really hook me that much and it didn't really string me along in a way that I had hoped. It's not bad by any means, it's kind of just inoffensive. Now for farming sim games like this, the meat is really in the gameplay. Now what's odd about Kitaria Fables is that it doesn't really play like a farming sim game or an RPG. Let me explain. So you can grow crops, although it's a pretty simple set of mechanics. You till the land, you plant the crops, you water it, and you pull them. But the really interesting thing about your crops is that you don't grow them to sell them, they're more for health items in combat. In other farming sims, you grow these crops because you want to try to save money to buy something big like a backpack, a house upgrade, or something like that. But in Kitaria Fables, there really isn't anything like this. And you can't really save for animals because, well, everybody's animals, and that makes sense that there aren't animals that you can buy. Really the only thing you would need to save up money for are new pieces of equipment. Now before I talk about the crafting aspects, I want to dive into the RPG aspects a little bit. More than anything, this game plays much more like a traditional action RPG. There is a main story to keep you going, you have side quests, you fight monsters, and so on. Now the combat is fairly simple. You have a pretty straightforward sword combo, you can eventually build a bow and attack from range, and you can also unlock the ability to cast spells. Now like I said, it's serviceable if not a little clunky. What is nice though is you can see the enemy hit range and when they're about to attack, so it's really nice when you're trying to dodge or get a sense of what the enemies are doing, you have all the information that you would need. But here's the thing, you don't level up in Kitaria Fables. Nope, there's no XP. You just fight monsters for quests or for the parts they drop. Now to build gear, you'll need these items that the monsters drop, as well as wood that you would chop and ore that you would mine. To go back to the farming gameplay aspect for a second, those types of games are all about the daily loop of watering your crops, feeding your animals, talking to the people in town, etc. But here in Kitaria Fables, there really isn't one. Now right here is really where I want to dive into my gripes for the game. For one, the inventory system is horrible. You can really only hold 4 items at a time that you can swap between on the fly. In other farming sim games, you're allowed to switch between different tools pretty quickly, but here you can only hotkey 4 items at a time. And because this is an RPG and a farming sim game, you have to balance of, okay, do I want healing items? Do I want weapons? Do I want farming tools? And so it's super cumbersome to constantly have to open up your inventory and swap all these different things out. It's just super annoying. And what's also annoying is navigating the world. All the zones are so tiny. Now you have your village and you have these different areas throughout the world, but all these zones are just tiny. They're so small, and so you're constantly having to load into new ones. And the other thing that's really frustrating about it is there's not a ton of fast travel points. Yes, there are some, but if you're trying to run, 3 zones away, there may not be a fast travel point anywhere near. So you have to just walk there. And the part that's bad about that is there's no run button. The character does feel kind of slow, so having a run button would have been so nice. It really just feels like the developers mashed a bunch of ideas together from farming sim and RPG gameplay, but didn't fully think through how they would all interact with each other. Instead of a Rune Factory game with animals, it's an RPG with farming elements. And basically what you're left with here is a mediocre action RPG. The story is just okay, but the combat isn't good enough to carry the entire game. Now thankfully, Kitaria Fables does have a super charming presentation. As I mentioned before, all the different characters have these wonderful character portraits. The art is beautiful, very bright and colorful, super charming, and the music has a very chill vibe to it that just fits the vibe of what the game's going for. Now I tried really hard not to be too harsh with this game, but Kitaria Fables just left me frustrated and disappointed. It's clear the developers tried to make a charming farming sim RPG, but failed to capture any of what makes those games great. There's really no reason to farm as you don't sell the items because there's nothing to buy, there's no relationship building with other characters, you can't get married, and if you're just in it for the RPG aspect, you don't level up, and the gameplay just isn't strong enough to carry the game through to the end. I pushed myself to play for more hours than I really wanted to with this review, but every time I ended a play session, I just felt frustrated or annoyed. I love farming sim games and wanted to love Kitaria Fables, but sadly, I just couldn't. Now, if you want to hear about some more RPGs coming this year that you might love, make sure you check out this video right here. And if you enjoy RPG content and want more, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.